Hello guys, my name is Balkrishna Srivastava and welcome to Code with BK. So in this video we write a C++ program to read input for an array of integers. So before we begin, it is a request to please subscribe to my channel, because out of 100 viewers only 3 to 5 are subscribed. More than 95% of my audience is not subscribed, and a subscription is very important, so please do subscribe to my channel. So let's begin. So we have to write a C++ program to read array input for integers. Okay, so for first example, I have input as 5 and the next line contains the 5 integers. So I have the array size 5 in this case as the first input, and then the 5 integers that are supposed to go in the array. Okay, in the next example, I have the same 5 integers, but I do not have the size of this array input separately. Okay, I get all the integers in one single line, and it is my responsibility to read all these integers into an array. Okay, so let's look at the first case. Okay, so I will say to store the size of the array. Okay, this is int n. I'll set it to 0 for now, and to store the array. Okay, this is an integer pointer. Okay, all right. So example 1, size is provided and the integers in this array are provided. Let me write the code for this first and then I explain. Okay, so the first thing I read is the size using cn. Okay, I'll just explain in a moment how cn works here, and then I have to read these n integers. Okay, so I have to do cn n more times to read n more integers. Okay, so I create the array. Okay, so I say arr equal to new int of size n. Okay, and read the integers into the array. So I say for int I equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus. In each iteration I do same cn. Instead of going into n, I want this value to go into the ith index of this array. Okay, let me just write a separate method to print the array. Okay, so void print array takes an integer array arr and its size n. Okay, so reading the size n and then reading n integers into the array, I say print the array. Okay, print array, pass arr and finally delete the array. So it is a good practice to delete the memory that you have allocated for the array. So since we are using new, we can use delete. So we say delete arr. Okay, let's compile and run. Okay, so my first input is supposed to be 5, which is the size of the array, and then the 5 integers 1, 3, 12, 18 and 27. So these are the birth dates of all the 5 family members of my family. So we have birth dates in all multiples of 3. So my dad's birthday is on 1st, my brother's birthday is on 3rd, mine is on 12th, my sister's birthday is on the 18th, and my mother's birthday is on 27th. Okay, nice. All right, so I get this as my output. Let me try again. I make say 8 integers this time. I say 2, 45, 6, 89, 23, 4. 6 integers, 7 and 8 integers. So I get 8 integers the way I want. All right. Now let me just explain this code. First thing, how cin works. Cin n. Okay. Cin, when reading an integer, basically when reading an integer using cin, okay, cin will ignore all the white spaces that it finds before an integer. Okay, will ignore all white space, all possible white space, including backslash n, backslash r, backslash t, whatever possible white space it will ignore till it finds the integer. All white space before it finds the integer. Okay, then reads and returns the integer. Okay, so it will ignore all white spaces till it finds an integer when you are using cin to read an integer, and the moment it finds an integer, it returns. Okay, so the remaining input that is still there stays in the input buffer. So the next call to cin will start from the point where it left in the previous call. Okay, and this behavior is very similar. I'll say almost exactly the same the way next int works with scanner. Okay, now if you look at our input, okay, the first call to cin is supposed to read this integer n, which is the size. There is no white space before 5. Okay, so 5 is read and returned. Okay, then comes 1, but before 1 we also have this change in line after 5, which is a part of the input, which is a white space. That's a backslash n. So between 5 and 1 we have a white space. That is why 5 is treated separately and 1 is treated separately, because of a white space in between. What I mean to say is this input is very similar to this input as well. Okay, that is, my first input is the size of the array, which is 5. Then I have a space to separate my integer. Okay, because the next call to cin will ignore this white space and return this integer. Okay, so when I click enter, I get the same output that I get here. Okay, so change in line is also a white space. All right, and so when one is read, okay, the call is returned. In the next call to cin, which is in the second iteration of the loop, there is a white space which is ignored, third is returned. In the third iteration of the loop, this white space is ignored, 12 is returned. In the fourth iteration, this white space is ignored, 18 is returned. In the fifth iteration, this white space is ignored, 27 is returned. Okay, what I mean to say is cin reads an integer, ignores all white spaces between them. So if I do 5 and 1, then 51 is read as one single integer, and then you add a space, so the value of n read is 51. So you will have to add 51 integers, which is a lot of input. So I'm gonna just stop the program. Okay, so as I explained, you just have to add white spaces to separate two integers. So if I do 5 and then press enter, that's a white space. So my first integer input say 23. I enter again, press enter again, that's another white space. So that's equivalent to separating these two integers with a white space, with a single space. Okay, if I say 45, enter, another white space between two integers, 78, 91 and 30. Okay, in this case we were having all the integers in the same line. In this case we have all the integers in a separate line. We still get the same output. Okay, because the idea remains the same, that you just have to add one white space, at least one white space, to separate two integers, so that 5 integers can be read. So if I run this again, okay, and the idea again remains the same, we have to add at least one white space for cin to detect a separate integer. So if I say 5, press enter, I say 3, I can add as many space I want. Okay, this is my next integer. I add more spaces, third integer. I add more spaces, fourth integer, enter, enter, enter. The moment I do this, my fifth integer is read. The first integer, second integer, third integer, fourth integer, and fifth integer. Okay, that's why this behavior will be the same as this behavior, because that is how cin works. It will ignore all white spaces till it finds an integer. All white spaces including single space, backslash n, backslash t, and everything. Okay, again one last case, I keep adding space. So in order to provide my size as well, it is still looking for an integer, which is the size is 3. I still add spaces, 45. I still add spaces. I do 5 and a space, then I start my third integer, enter. So my input is 45, 5 and 6. Alright. So this is how you basically read integers using example 1, which is very similar to this example as well, where you have integers on a separate line. But in this case, you do know the size of the array, at least, so that you can create the array, okay, knowing its size, and then populate the array. Moving on to the second example, we don't know the size of the array. This is our input, one single line containing space separated integers. That is what we want to read. Okay, so how do we go about the second case? So let me just comment out this first case. Okay, my second case, all integers of the array in one single line of input. All right, so we use cin with an extraction operator. We call this as an extraction operator to read an integer, okay, into a variable. All right, so we read the size and then we read the values into the array locations. Okay, in this case, what we can do is, we know this is our input. This thing is our input, and that is all is the part of the input. There is no more input. Input ends there. Okay, so we can use while cin n. That is, as long as you're able to extract an integer from cin using this extraction operator. Okay, so let's just print the integer. So I'll say cout integer read is n. Okay, we just read all the integers from cin using the extraction operator. Let me comment this and this as well, because we just want to read the integers right now. Okay, oh, comment this, because if we try to delete an array that is not allocated, we get some error. Okay, all right, and we run. Okay, so my input is only one single line with space separated integers. Okay, I press enter, and that is my end of input. Okay, so I'm able to read all the integers, okay, into my program. okay, but I'm not able to store them. And in order to store the integers, I need to know the size of the array. Okay, I can just print right now the integers that are in this line after my input ends, but I don't know how many integers I have read. I can obviously count the number of integers. I can say int x and I'll say n equal to 0. We read the integer into x now, and n will count the size. Okay, I'll say cout n integers read. Okay, clear, compile, run. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5 6, enter and control D. My input ends, 6 integers read. Okay, all right, but I haven't stored them. And using this code we cannot store them, because once the input is read we cannot read it again. So if I do this again, okay, that is if I try to count the number of integer once and then try to store it, if I say arr equal to new, the same thing, creating an array which is all right. Okay, I said index equal to 0, starting from index 0, I say arr of index plus plus is x. Okay, all right, and I'll say print array arr and n, which is the size of the array. Okay, I will get a blank array, because once I have read all the input from cin using this extraction operator, that input is read. I cannot go back and read that input again. That is gone. So if you try to do that again, nothing will happen because there is no more input. Okay, so if I compile and run and I provide 5 integers, end of input, okay, you see I get zeros only, because an array of this size was created. Okay, 5 integers were read and n integers were read, an array of this size was created, but I cannot populate because this while loop will never run. That's why all locations get default values of zeros. These values are not into the array. So how do I read these values, count them, and also store them in the array? We use string stream. Okay, now string stream is very similar to how we extract from cin. Okay, so what we do is we read this entire line of input in a string and then extract integers from it using string stream. Okay, read the input line, because my input is only one single line that contains space separated integers. Read input line containing integers. Okay, so I'll say string input. Okay, I'll use get line to read from cin in the string input. Okay, and instead of using this, okay, I create a string stream. Okay, so creating a string stream, we can extract integers from the string in the same way we extract integers from cin, because we create a stream using this string. That is string stream ss, okay, is made up of this input. The string stream is made up of this string input. All right, so instead of using cin, I extract from ss. Okay, so once I use string stream to count the number of integers, and then I use string stream again to extract. And the behavior of string stream is also very similar. Once you extract all integers, you cannot extract them again, but we can do a hack here. We can create the string stream again. Okay, because we have the same string stored. Okay, so I say ss is a new string stream with the same input. Okay, creating the same string stream using the same input. So now when you're extracting from this string stream using this extraction operator, we store the values into the array. All right, in short, creating a string stream. All right, the string stream to count the number of integers in the input. Okay, right, then recreating the stream. This is 2c. Okay, the third point in this second example of input. And finally 2d is use the same idea to extract and store integers into the array. Okay, so the second example that we have, this we need to count the number of integers and also store them in the array. So what we do is create a string stream. Okay, use string stream to extract integers, but first time just count, don't store them. Okay, once we have the count, we create an array, then we reinitialize this string stream using the same input. So we have the same stream again we do the same extraction but this time we store the values into the array. Okay, now if I provide my input as one single line, okay, so 1 2 3 4 5, I get this array as output. Okay, so I can remove this part, remove this part. I just have to input the integers, space separated as many as I want, and I get them into the array. All right, running again, adding multiple spaces between two integers, but all of them have to be in the same line because we are reading only one line of input. Okay, so we get 1 3 55 68 89 90 11 14 13. Right, all these space separated integers into an array. All right, we can also print the size of the array, size of the array. Okay, n and l. Okay, so clear, compile, run. Okay, 5 integers. Okay, 10 integers, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 100. Okay, then some random number of integers, adding as many as spaces that you want. Okay, and this string stream idea is when you want to store the integers from the input. If you want to just have one pass on the input, you can definitely use cin. You can have a look at all the integers and then use it. If you are using vectors, you don't need strings. You can simply keep extracting integers from cin as long as possible using this while loop and keep appending to the vector. Okay, but the idea here was to store integer input into the array. That's why we wanted to stick with the array. Okay, so creating a string stream using a string, okay, and extracting values from it using this extraction operator works in the same way when you extract values from cin, because cin is also a stream. Okay, so the way you extract integers, the way you extract strings, the way you extract characters using this extraction operator from cin will work the same way when you create a string stream from the same string input. Okay, so this was the C++ program to read array input, and these were the two broad examples that we discussed. Okay, that we have the size, that we don't have the size. Okay, so another example could be where you have input as integers, one on a separate line, and but you don't know how many number of lines. In that case, what you can do, you can use the same extraction idea, okay, to read all the integers and keep appending to a string with a space. Okay, then you create a string stream out of it. Okay, count and then populate there. Okay, so this was the C++ program, and I hope this was helpful. So if you have any doubts, if there is a part you do not understand, please let me know in the comments. I always try to answer all your comments, and you can also let me know in the comments if there's a question you want to solve or if there's a concept you want to discuss. So please let me know your thoughts about this video in the comments. Please like my video, subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching.